What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So Spider-Man 2 finally makes its way to PC, and I'll be testing it here on all the different handhelds that I have. But we're starting with the Steam Deck as usual and seeing what its performance is like here. And I didn't expect it to be as good as the original Spider-Man or Miles Morales, because I know from playing on PS5 and the looking at what was coming here, it'd probably be a little bit tougher to run, and it does indeed seem to be that way. But we do have AMD's FSR 3.1, in-game frame generation, and lots of options with the settings. So let's go ahead and get in and take a look. Settings wise here, guys, full screen, 800p, no problem. You do have HDR support on the OLED that does work very well. FSR 3.1, we can do performance, bounce, quality, and we do have frame generation. We also have very high, medium, low, and very low. The game's pretty much going to have to play between very low, low, and some areas you can kind of push to medium, but it does wind up falling apart. And we are always using a ton of RAM here with this game, definitely more than what the deck has to give us, so that can cause some issues with some frame rate drops and other things here as well. But this is pretty much what the settings are that I'm kind of sticking with, but we are going to look at a few different ones here. So starting off with low FSR 3.1 quality, frame gen off here, 800p, just sitting still in the city, taking a look here, 38 FPS. Switch over to balanced on FSR 3.1, we'll come up to about 39 to 40 FPS. And then we're going to switch over to performance, which will take us up to about 42, 43. But you guys know how FSR is when you start getting past balanced and into performance. Unless it's really working out for you, I'd probably stick with something more balanced. Now, very high on the settings, of course, is not going to work as we get into gameplay, but I wanted to throw it up here on the screen anyways. And then we have high, which again will definitely fall apart once we start moving around the city and getting into gameplay as well. And then we'll switch over to medium here, and that'll bring us up to more like 36. And this actually does work in some areas of the game without too much trouble, but then there's other areas it really does struggle. And then going to that low with FSR balance frame gen off, we get up to about 40 or so here, which is kind of a sweet spot for running the game and not looking too bad here. And then very low, which will actually bump us up quite a bit, another 6 to 7 FPS, but it does take a pretty big visual hit. So it's going to be up to you what you want to do there. But that's kind of what I'm doing here with the low FSR 3 balanced, frame gen off there. Now, let's go ahead and go in and turn frame gen on for a second, because this is actually working pretty well in this game. In-game frame generation is usually what I like to be able to use, and we have it here. So we'll turn that on and activate it, and it works pretty decently. It doesn't have issues like some other games. It doesn't mess up our frame times or frame pacing, and everything works pretty well. It just basically doubles the frame rate, and haven't had too much trouble with it. Not a lot of additional input latency or anything like that. But as you see, as we get moving around, even with these low settings, we're going to dip into the 20s easily and often as we're swinging around. And I'll switch this over to frame gen on as I get into a little combat here, and it actually does help a lot. I think for a lot of people, frame generation might be the way to go here if you're trying to keep your frame rate up higher. If you're someone that doesn't mind playing closer to that 30 FPS range, or you want to cap it to 30, you might have a better, some better luck there. But again, no matter what you do, unless you go very low on the settings like I had showed earlier, you are going to be going under 30 FPS quite often in bigger battles and swinging around the city and that type of thing if you're not using frame generation. So that's kind of a look at all the settings and kind of what performance is doing here. I want to go and look at the beginning of the game really quickly. It gives you another little bit of an idea here, even running on these low settings where I've tweaked a couple more even lower in the settings here with no frame gen, easily in the 20s a lot of the times. Again, we are using more RAM than the system has. It's just tougher to run than the other Spider-Man games, and there's going to be times where you're easily down in those 20s, but times where you're bouncing right back up into 30s, 40s, and even 50s in some areas, and depending on your settings. But at least this should give you kind of a better idea of what to expect if you're going to jump into Spider-Man 2 on your Steam Deck. I would consider the game quite playable. I was a little concerned about what its performance was going to be like as we got into it, but ultimately I think for a lot of you it'll be okay, but don't expect as good of performance as we had with the original Spider-Man PC port. This one's just a bit tougher to run, but at least we do have FSR 3.1 in here and frame gen and enough graphics options to where even if the game doesn't always look its best, it should be playable here for you on the deck. But anyways, guys, with all that said, I'll leave you with a little bit more gameplay to go in and check out and see for yourself here without me talking here on the deck, and decide for yourself if this is something you want to grab and play on here. I'll also be testing all the other handhelds from the new MSI Claw, the Legion Go, and the Ally X after I get this one done. So, alright guys, thanks a lot for coming to check out the video. As always, I really appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one.
Gonna have to flag that business transaction. This is my best stuff. enjoy. Just, you shouldn't have shown yourself!
Hate to interrupt the business meeting, but... Wait, heck, you know I don't!
He's up there! Ow! Not the web! We'll stop you no matter what!
See? That's the thing about business deals. Nobody ever expects spiders.